Now, let's go back. With that in mind, a small church is what we call 3 in 1. Otherwise, a small church is all of these in one group. So when I pastored my first church out of seminary, there was 29 people. Sunday morning, there's 29 people there. For the Christmas party, they all came over to the parsonage, and we had all 29 people in my living room, at the parsonage, celebrating a Christmas party. So we worshiped together and praised God together, but we were also, the same group of people were educated and fellowshipping together. And because we were only 29 people, we really were just a small group. I mean, everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everything about everybody. I mean, we knew everybody's problems. That's the way small churches are. Those kind of churches don't need small groups. They are a small group. So don't go into a church of 20, 30, 40, 50 and say, we need to start a small group program. No, you don't. You don't. See? Now, so you're in this little church. As it starts growing, and I ask you the question, how many people can you get in your living room? When you get to the point, then you can no longer get the whole church in your living room. Now, you have to break out these groups. So as long as we can get everybody in my living room or your house for a party, we're 3 in 1. As the church grows larger, all of a sudden we can't get everybody into one room, one house for fellowship time. Now we break out the second level congregations. So then, as long as these congregations are small, if your Sunday school class, your women's group, your youth group is only 10 or 12 or 15 people, you don't need small groups. These provide the intimacy because they're small. But now when your fellowship groups start getting up to 20, 25, 30, they no longer allow for the intimacy anymore. That's when you have to break out small groups. So normally small groups really don't develop in a church until the church gets a little larger, 60, 80, 100 people, unless you're starting a church from scratch. And then a lot of church planters will start a church from scratch. They will not use the middle-sized group. They don't use Sunday school. So they have worship in small groups, in part because this level here is facility-driven, educational space. You have to have educational rooms in order to have educational classes. Now, in the 1950s, the 1960s, right after World War II, land was still fairly inexpensive in America, and the Sunday school was still the primary driving ministry of the church. And so what churches would do is they'd build these humongous educational buildings. They would buy property and build these things. That worked for a long time. Now land is expensive. And if you want to build your church based upon Sunday school, it'll still work, particularly in the South, if you work it. But it is facility-based. And when you run out of classrooms, then can we afford to buy more property and build another educational wing, those sorts of things. Well, what some churches have done is gone to 2 Sunday schools, 3 Sunday schools, just like you do 2 services or 3 services. But what most churches are doing today are deciding to go to small groups. Because small groups are facility-driven also, but they're called homes. And the church doesn't have to buy those homes, maintain those homes, heat those homes, clean those homes, anything. And they're ultimately expandable. Because every time you bring in a new person in the church or a new family, you got a new home. So there's a continuing resource of facilities as your church gets larger. As new people come, they always have a place to live. And so they have a place to meet. And the church doesn't have to put out the expenditure for that. So there's been this, in the last 50 years, because of the changing of relationships and things, there's been a move towards small groups to provide intimacy, care, love. As churches got larger, same thing. As land got more expensive, also a move towards small groups because it's the least expensive option versus buying property and building educational space.